Okay, this is week 6 for CIS180. This week you're going over Chapter 5, read and do examples in the chapter. Chapter 5 quiz, discussion, and programming assignment. And let's go ahead and start with the notes for Chapter 5 on more and selection structure. First is what's called a nested structure. Went over the if statement. You can also have what's called a nested if. The if statement basically has a true path on the first line here. If this path is true, then it asks if another path is true. So first argument is true, second argument nested. So basically for a nested structure, when a structure is true or false path, it contains another selection structure, will be a nested. Example 2 here is a nested structure in the false path. We have the if the video store has a Shining in stock, rent the Shining, else if the video store has Misery in stock, rent that, else watch Pet Sematary on DVR. So this would be the example of a nested false path. Voter registration, eligibility app. Harrisburg City Manager wants an application, determines voter eligibility, and displays 1 of 3 messages. The messages and criteria for the app or for the displaying of the messages are following. First is the message, you are too young to vote, the person is younger than 18. Second, you can vote, person is at least 18 or older and is registered to vote. Third, you must register to vote. You must register before you vote. Criteria for that is person is at least 18 but is not registered to vote. So to do this in a flowchart scenario, you could do this on paper or in a PowerPoint document. And there's also apps out there to let you do this very thing. But basically you start out with a display button, click event, starting it out. And it says here on the top, the display button is a click event procedure in this application. So you store age in a variable, and whether it's true or false, you're going to go to a certain path. So if it's false, meaning the age is greater than, is not greater than or equal to 18, it's going to go the false path, displaying you're too young, go on down here, and then stop. Say they are greater than or equal to 18, then it sees if they're registered. This would be a nested. So on a true path here, it has a nested another if-else statement. If they are registered, display you can vote. If they're not, display they need to register before they vote. Another way to do it here, for the false path, is say you have the argument on the front end, find out their age, that they are indeed less than 18. On the false path, registered, false, you must register to vote. True, display you can vote. If the age is less than 18 on the true path, means that they are under 18. Just displays a true path if statement. One path, no nested. So this true path has one, false path has a nested here. In the button click event, put in a string variable here, you can vote. Another string variable, you can register before you vote. Another one, you're too young to vote. And then an integer for age. Doing a try parse. And remember on the try parse, if this age text box is not a valid numeric value, it will always default to 0 for error catching. So here we have the if statement displaying an appropriate message, has a if age is greater than or equal to 18, then a nested selection if statement, else another message, meaning they're too young. The code for that, already went over. There's other multiple alternative selection structures as well within VB that you can choose from. An example here is a manager of a theater wants an application that displays either the price of the concert ticket or an error message. The ticket is based on the following codes: code 1, 2, 3, 4, and other. Code 1 and 2 is $15, 3 is $25, 35, 4, and other is invalid. So the user enters the number 1 through 4 and gets back a display. If it's beyond 4, it's an invalid code. So you store the code in a variable to do the pseudocode. If the code is one of the following, 1 or 2, display 15, 3, display 25, 4, 35, else display invalid. So this first if path is a first argument for true. If this is true, then you notice it has multiple values it can choose from, multiple paths. So here we have the variable, the code. 1 and 2 can be 15, 3, 25, 4, 35, and other invalid. So the if statement on this one, if code is equal to 1 or else code is equal to 2, then $15 else. If code is equal to 3, 25 else. Code is equal to 4, 35 else, invalid code. The other way here, you'll notice a little bit different. If code is equal to 1 or equal to 2, 15, else if path is on this one. A little bit easier to keep track of, you'll notice, because it's in line with the first if statement. This here can be pretty difficult sometimes if you go beyond 3 ifs. We have 1, 2, and 3. You don't recommend going beyond that. This would be a better logic, probably. Multiple else ifs. You notice you have if 1 or 2, 15, 3, 25, 4, 35 else. Means none of the above. It's going to go to invalid. Next is select case statement, which is used a lot in programming to use when there's many different paths to choose from. I would say more than 3 or 4 paths. It's simpler and clearer than using several if then else. Begins with the word select case, which specifies the value to be matched, and ends with end select. So you have select case and then end select. It has one case cause for each possible path. The case else is optional, but must be the last case in the statement. So an example for the syntax for this, you have the word select case, then the expression, then case 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth, all the way to case else. An example would be select case code, case 1, comma 2, 15, case 3, 25, case 4, 35, case else, invalid. The case cause may have more than one value separated by commas within the case, as it here is on this first case, case 1 and 2. Only one value must be matched to process the code in the case, though. And then processing of a case clause stops when the next clause is encountered. If no value in the case clause are matched, the case else is processed, as it is here. If none of the cases above are matched, it goes to the else. So specifying a range of values in a case, you can use the to and is keywords to specify a range. To, when you know both the upper and lower bounds of the range. Is, when you know only the end of a range. This one you use a comparison operator. So, syntax for this case, whatever the smallest value is to the largest value, or case is comparison operator value. So here we have an ABC Corporation price chart. Number ordered 1 to 5 is 25, 6 to 10, 23, more than 10, 20, less than 1, 0. Case select, ordered. Case 1 to 5, this would be a range 1 2, 3, 4, and 5, 1 to 5, it would be 25. 6 to 10, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 23. If its case is greater than 10, price is going to be 20. If it's none of the above, it's going to go to the else and be 0. Radio button is the next interface within applications. Allows a user to select one of a group of 2 or more choices. Radio button choices are related but mutually exclusive, and only one can be selected at a time. Container control for radio button isolates a group of radio buttons. It includes group box, panel, and table layout controls. The minimum number of radio buttons in a group is 2. Must select a radio button to deselect another. The recommended maximum number in a group is 7. Windows standard is to set 1 as a default upon load time. To do that, you set the check property to true to make it the default radio button. So in this example, we've got Alabama, standard, the 2 radio buttons selected by default. And this is a Gentry Supplies shopping cart or shipping cart chart. State, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, North Carolina, and overnight delivery, each one having its own standard delivery charge. Starting out declaring ship charge as an integer, and then determining the state's shipping charge depending on the radio button they select. So if Alabama radio button is checked, it's going to be 20. If Georgia's 35, Louisiana 30, else it's going to be 28. If the overnight radio button is checked, it's going to be a ship charge added of $10. And then finally displaying that to a label in the currency format with the C2, a .2 string C2 would convert this integer to a currency. Version 2 is taking the display button and now doing a select case for Georgia radio button, Louisiana radio button, or else, and then an if statement to add the ship charge, and then again displaying it to the label in currency format. Next is a message box show. This displays a message box with text of one or more buttons. This semester so far I've showed you, I believe, the shorter version, which is MSG box. With newer versions of Visual Basic over the years, they've converted it to messagebox.show. When a message box is displayed, the program waits until the user selects a button. It returns an integer value on which button is pressed. So for instance, you can do a dialog result for a yes or a no. So the syntax is messagebox.show, what you want the user to see in the text in the message box, a caption for that form, that caption box, message box, the buttons that you want, icon, and then default button. The text is just a text to display, caption is what they see in the title bar, and then the buttons to display can be abort, retry, ignore, OK, which is a default one. So if you just put, for instance, in the messagebox.show text in quotes and don't do anything else, you will have an OK button, and the label on the title will be actually the title of your application. OK, cancel, retry, cancel, yes, no, and yes, no, cancel. And here are the following: exclamation, icon, information, question, and stop. An example: this displays information module that contains a message: record deleted, payroll for the title, OK button, and information. Next one is delete this record, payroll, yes, no, exclamation, and a button 2. So here are some of the button examples or results back, return value. You have an OK, cancel, abort, retry, ignore, yes, and no. You can tie these to a if statement. In this example, they have dim button as dialog result, button equals, and then the message box. And then if button is equal dialog.result, or dialog result.yes, then whatever instructions. You can also put just an if statement right here in front of the message box, if, and then message box, and at the end here, you would do an equals dialog result.yes. And that's how they have it on this one here. Then lastly, KeyPress Event. The KeyPress Event can prevent text box from accepting inappropriate characters. KeyPress Event occurs when a user types in something in the text box. The E parameter key care determines whatever key they pressed, and then use the E parameter's handle event to determine if it's inappropriate. You set it to true to discard the character they typed in. Control characters.back is a constant represent the backspace key on the keyboard. And then line continuation character, the underscore, allows you to split a line of code into two lines in the code editor. So in this example here, they do not, on the age text box, if the character is less than 0 or else it's greater than 9 and its character is not a backspace, then it's going to be true, meaning this allows characters that are only numbers and only backspace on this text box. Next one, this one allows text box to accept only numbers of backspace. A little different. They do an end also, and then notice here at the end of this line, they just do a line continuation just for aesthetic purposes to see it easier. So for this week's homework, you're going to be doing Chapter 5, program assignment, and you're going to be doing the Willow Creek Health Club on Chapter 5, page 304, 305. Extra credit, as always, by adding color readability and formatting pictures. Also, I want to add another one to that as far as extra credit goes, is adding a error provider, which I'll show you how to do tonight. So here's the application. It's got here a radio box or a group box, two of them. The deal with group boxes is that would be the group boxes would actually be the grouping items on your form. It works well with radio buttons. Remember, with radio buttons, you have to have at least two objects or more, two radio buttons or more. So I always suggest putting the radio or the group boxes on first, then adding the radio buttons second. Okay, so group boxes first, radio buttons second. Then you also have here a label text box for text weight text box, label, button for displaying the calories, and then exiting. And then I'll cover the error provider in just a second. Well, in fact, let me go ahead and do this now. On the error provider, which is extra credit, basically error provider allows you to put a blinking error provider on areas of your specifically fields where the user enters in incorrect data or data that's needed in order to continue. And it blinks until it's fulfilled. So let's go ahead and run the application and we'll look at the code. So the way this application is supposed to work is the user is supposed to enter in whether they're male or female, active or inactive, their weight. Now if they enter in by default a letter like I just did, a letter A, notice the blinking pops up here. It says please enter in numbers only. So if I enter in a number, now the blinking goes away because it's valid. If I click display calories, it's going to give me those calories. Now let's go ahead and look at the code behind. Upon load of this application, let's look at the top, very top of the code view. As always, put in your project name, purpose, created and revised by. You've got option explicit on, strict on, infer on. in the display button, well, let's back up a little further. Let's do the text weight text box button. This is actually in the KeyPress event. And it only accepts numbers and backspace is what it's supposed to do for this one. And so if e.char is less than 0 or else e.char is greater than 9, and also e.char is not equal to backspace, then it's going to set the error provider, and the error provider I named it on this one is EP weight, and then it's a dot set error, the name of the object, comma, and what error you want them to see. If they've entered in a 0 through 9 or they're using a backspace, and it's also not a backspace character, then it's going to clear it. The dot set error, the name of the object, and empty quotes. So in order to add this error provider, it's going to be over here under components. You just click and drag error provider onto your form. It'll show down here at the bottom of your form. You'll go over to right and rename it. I renamed mine EP weight. Yours does not have to be named that, but that's what I named mine. The other thing I'd like you to do is change it from blink style, always blink. Blink style, always blink. That means it's going to always blink until they correct it. Everything else can stay the same. So the syntax for this, again, for the error provider is dot set error. Then it has the object name that you're wanting to set the error to if there is an error, and then comma, and then what message you want to click on or to display when they put their mouse over the error. The calculate button or display calories button, it calculates and displays the number of daily calories needed to maintain a person's weight. Have a couple variables here. Weight and daily calories is integer. Assigning weight to a variable, weight. If it's a non-numeric value, this will be 0. If radio button female is checked, it's going to do a select case here. And on that select case, it's going to see if they're active or inactive. If they're active, it's going to be weight times 12. If they're inactive, it's going to be weight times 10. Male selected is going to hit the else path. Another select case statement. If active, weight times 15. If not active, weight times 13. Then converting that string, converting to a string, the daily calories, which is an integer, and then displaying it on the LBL daily cals label, and then focusing back on the text weight text box. So let's go ahead and run it one more time. Upon load time, cursor is blinking in the weight box. Again, I'm going to try to put in a non-numeric. As I hover my mouse over, it says please enter in numbers only. I'm going to put in some numbers. Click display calories, and now the display calories shows up. So that concludes the Willow Creek or the Willow Health Club application. Package that and send it as always to the Dropbox for this week. Also, the extra credit is if you wanted to add a picture in here, you can, or colors. And then also the error provider is one I'd like you to try this week as just an extra credit, something extra. Shouldn't take too much longer to do. And as always, if you have any questions, you can email me in Eagle. Otherwise, have a great week.